and welcome to the Way to Live Well podcast. My name is Anna Maria and I'll be your host on the show. I feel like we've really come full circle together now. We're revisiting our very first guest from the show, and this has really caused me to reflect back on that very first podcast. A bit scratchy, a bit shaky, a little bit of uncertainty, but full of the desire and willingness and joy of creating and being in something new, with all of the understanding of the potential failure and public failure for that matter, but still going forward with it. And this really brought me to thinking about how, as we emerge from our cocoon-like states that we've been in for the past year, how we can approach it with that same willingness in ourselves, but also with a kind of sweetness. Because we have been through this period of grief, and so many of us have felt that so deep in the body, because grief is a very physical thing. And quite often, grief is its own remedy. So sitting in it and being with it for as long as that takes for each individual person is vital. We can't rush one another, and we can't have any expectations of one another to be where we are or to feel as though we should be where someone else is. My mantra lately has been to be sweet towards myself and towards my efforts, wherever they are and however I meet them on each day. And I invite you to take this one on as well, just to give it a go, see how it feels, see how it sits in your own body. But for now, let's get on to the episode. I catch up with Tanya to find out how she's coped through lockdown, all the amazing creative projects she has in the works, her work as a doula, and much, much more. As well, I'd say grab a pen and paper, because we're going to be taking some really interesting notes and prompts for journal work, which can be really, really helpful to settle the mind space and really help drive you forward in your journey. Cool. Hey Tanya, how's it going?
Hi, good, thank you. So pleased to be here. Thanks for having me on again. How's it going for you?
It's going really well, thanks. It's so amazing. I mean, we were just saying just before we started recording there that it was January 2019 the last time we spoke. So wow, how far we have come and how much we have been through. And it's such a privilege to just have you on again and to kind of touch base with you and just to kind of check in with the trajectory of everything you've been doing, and yeah, just such an interesting thing to listen back to our very first interview, which was my first podcast and your first podcast perhaps, and just like the change since then, and just to see our own growth and development is just so cool, so interesting, So I guess I'd love to just get straight in and ask you, what has been going on for you since that fateful day in January 2019?
Yeah, absolutely. So much has changed, because I think that at the time I was running a food business with my cousin, the Couscous Cousins, which was really great. That was such a good experience, but we've since gone our separate ways. Business wise, so we're not doing that anymore. And I'm pretty sure when we last spoke, I was just about to train as a yoga teacher.
You had just completed your training, I believe.
Oh, I just completed it. Oh yeah, sorry, you're more on it than I am. So I've been really focusing on that since, and growing my yoga practice, growing my teaching skills, my knowledge, all of the things that you need to do to run your own business and do that kind of thing. And I've gone in quite a few different directions as well, especially with like what kind of yoga I've been teaching. So I've done some extra trainings. I did a restorative training, which is the same one that you did at Try Yoga. And I love teaching restorative. And even when I'm not teaching restorative, like in other classes, I just find that that kind of style has really influenced me a lot with all of the styles that I teach. And also since gone on to train in pregnancy and postnatal yoga, which is now my kind of main thing, even though I still like to teach the general yoga. And I don't want to give up the general yoga, but I really like the pregnancy stuff. So I'm sort of focusing on that in a way. And I've also trained as a birth and postnatal doula. So I'm sort of working it all out at the moment, doing those things together, as well as my general yoga classes. Yeah.
I love that. Like, it's just so interesting how much you've packed in and how much you've developed since that, since January 2019. It's just really, really interesting to hear. And I think it's just such a testament to that real kind of inner journey almost. It's like, with the yoga teacher training, you do this kind of initial foundation of things, and then there's so much room to sort of explore what you feel the real core need is for you to share in the world. And I think that's a really beautiful thing you've come to. And I'd love for you to chat a bit more about what a doula is, because I'm not sure everybody would know. So yeah, maybe you could go into that a bit.
Yeah, definitely. So a doula is typically a non-medical professional. Some doulas are also trained medically as well, but generally speaking, they're non-medical professionals that work with people at different times of life that are really important, key times at life. So you can get divorce doulas, you can get death doulas, all sorts of things, business doulas, whatnot, these kind of key moments in life. And I'm working as a pregnancy, birth and postnatal doula. So the idea is that I support women or pregnant people and their partners through pregnancy, birth and the postnatal period. And that can look like lots of different things. It could be kind of just have it being an ear, somebody to listen to, somebody to talk to, somebody to listen, kind of coaching through different decisions, different options, different things that might arise for people in that time, especially during pregnancy. It's a big deal, really, preparing for birth, navigating all of the different considerations, the relationship between you and your partner, what you want for your birth, your hopes, your fears, all of these kinds of things. It's really, there's a lot to take on, and it can be quite difficult for some people to kind of navigate that by themselves. So the idea of a doula is that you support people through that, not that you tell them what they should and shouldn't do, because it's not your place and you don't know what's best for people. They already know what's best for them, but you're just helping them to kind of find that. And then with the birth doula, you might actually attend the birth live. So when they go into labor, they would call you would go up to their house and spend however long with them. When they're in the early stages of labor, maybe they obviously give birth at home and you stay there with them, or you go to the hospital with them, blah, blah, blah. And then you would be with them during the birth, supporting them however they need it. That might be kind of massaging, like comforting, talking them through different breathing techniques, or it might be more practical. It might be lighting the candles or answering the telephone or getting people cups of tea. It's going to be really personal depending on just how the birth unfolds, and also the character of the doula and the woman who's giving birth, and also her partner. And then you would stay with them for a little bit in the postnatal period, immediately after birth, just for a couple of hours, helping them to settle into it. And then you would, go and visit them a couple of times in the postnatal period as well. Or you might, I also do work just as a postnatal doula. So I don't attend the birth, but I just visit them when they've got the baby and support them in various different ways. It might be kind of debriefing the birth experience. It might be talking about how they feel about their postnatal period and their baby and lack of sleep and their relationships or whatever it is. It might be more practical, cooking them food, just taking the baby out for a walk while they have a nap. It could be all sorts of things, really. And it's really important. I mean, obviously at the moment things are all a bit up in the air because of the COVID times and the restrictions and all of that, but it's so important that that women and the whole family, when there's during pregnancy and the postnatal period and birth, that they do have the support they need. And even in the best of times, that sometimes can be lacking, but especially at the moment, when there's so reduced networks, and I mean, people are finding ways around it. You know, there's lots of kind of online sessions and WhatsApp groups and all sorts of things, but a lot of the normal kind of support groups or spaces that would be in place are not happening at the moment.
Yeah.
So it's just a really interesting time to kind of work through all of that, work out what's best for me, work out what's best for the women that I work with, how I can support them at the moment.
That's amazing. What a beautiful support that is for women. And I imagine this goes way back into history, like probably before even midwives, there was someone like a doula who was there to support women.
Yeah,
Yeah, go on. It was just like, because we, as women, we always had other women gathering around us, and there would probably be somebody who assumed that role. But
well, absolutely, yeah. It comes from a Greek word like women's maid or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it means, but yeah, absolutely, as you say, kind of historically, way before you really would have had any kind, you know, doctor, sort of modern medical professionals, you would have, like you say, women around you supporting you through the birth. That's how traditionally you didn't have any men at all in the room. You wouldn't have the partner. You would just have lots of women there to support you through it. So it's kind of taking the essence of that kind of support from the past and bringing it into the modern birthing space.
That's so beautiful. And can I ask, what is it like to experience a birth, to be in the room for that?
Well, I've actually only attended one birth so far, because I only did my training last year, and then obviously we immediately went into the pandemic. I did it last February. So the one birth I have been at, I was in the room next door. I didn't make it into the room for the it was a surprise home birth, and it happened start to finish in 4 hours. So it was really wow. But it was still really amazing. I also supported her a lot through her pregnancy, so I got to know the whole family. I was also working as a nanny at the time with the family. So I saw it was just such an amazing experience, and you know, just getting to know the whole family really well, being there to support them, and also supporting them through the postnatal period. I worked with the family a lot in the postnatal period. It was really incredible having that whole experience. So yeah, I haven't actually been in the room yet with the baby coming out, but I'm really looking forward to it happening, because I think it will be incredible. And such a privilege as well, you know, to witness something so magical, or whatever the word is.
Absolutely. It's so wonderful to be sort of in that circle of trust as well for the family, for them to be able to trust you wholeheartedly, and for that sort of sharing and to be brought into that, to be part of something really miraculous and magical, as you say, right? It's really great. So how has it impacted you? Say we go back, 2019, you're on this trajectory, and how has everything that's kind of occurred either changed your trajectory or made you reconsider things? How has it impacted, or do you feel like it has at all? Maybe you would just be on the same kind of path.
No, it changed, and I feel like it's still changing. It changes regularly. I was in a group of yoga teachers a little while ago, and one of them said, if you're something along the lines of, if you're not confused as a yoga teacher, then there's something weird going on. I can't remember what she said, but the idea is that yoga teachers are always really confused about what they're doing, what it's about. Well, at least in my experience, when I talk to fellow yoga teachers, it's like, what is this? What is this thing that we're doing? What is yoga? What makes what I'm doing yoga? Why is it different to something else? Why is it important? and well, personally, I go through kind of cycles of feeling really like engaged in it and just really sure of my path and exactly what I'm doing and the purpose of it. And then I have these times when I'm like, whoa, what is this even about? And I always love teaching it and really get a lot out of it myself as well. But I go through lots of kind of cycles of what is my path? What am I doing here? What's the journey that I'm on? And then I find that I'll come back to something and I'm like, oh, 6 months ago I thought that's where I was at as well, and now I'm here again. And it's kind of just really it changes a lot, especially with being self-employed. It's a really different life to if you just get a job and you have a clear career path. You have to forge your own way and work out what works for you, what works for other people. So yeah, I mean, in terms of my career, I would say my path's changed a lot since January or February 2019, when it was when we last spoke, and especially with the doula stuff, because actually I'd been working as a nanny for years and years before that. I always loved working with women and children and babies, and now I feel like I'm actually bringing some of those skills and that experience that I had there into my life now. So it's sort of coming together in a more coherent way than maybe it was before. And working with pregnant women in my pregnancy yoga classes, that's my favorite part of the week. It's just really incredible having that experience, getting to know them, supporting them through that time. And so, and I've got much kind of clearer on what I'm about since then, I think, and sort of clear on what I have to offer and what I still don't know exactly where I'm headed, but the kind of things that I think I can offer to the world and do well in.
Yeah, it's really interesting what you say, and I think it's very true, and I think it's somehow tied in with our own personal development, because I feel like as a yoga teacher, as a creative person, as someone who's doing any kind of self-development or self-healing or any kind of internal work at all, you are constantly questioning, constantly changing and shifting and readjusting and reassessing, and I think our work is impacted by that enormously, because all of a sudden we become clear on what it is that we have to share, or what it is that we need to make clear our story in a way, and how to share that in a way that is positive and helpful towards others, right? And I think that's the really beautiful thing about this work and many other types of work that involve working directly with people. I think it's really beautiful as well for anybody who maybe loves also working with children and pregnant women, and maybe would like a different path. It's like a doula seems like such a perfect way to be in service and to work closely with women in that way. And I feel like I guess more and more women are coming back to these kind of collective spaces where we share and we heal together, and it's so powerful when we do it. I know particularly for me, when I did my pregnancy yoga teacher training, to feel that energy of this just group of absolutely beautiful women who are more connected with their femininity and interested in it as well. Like there's such a beautiful thing there, and I see it more and more. I don't know if that's just because I'm more aware of it, but it's also, it probably is that, but also that it is happening more as well. So I love it. So I guess you're sort of cooking and all the food stuff, is that sort of still central to your life, or
it's quite central to my personal life, in a different kind of a way. And I mean, obviously I haven't been able to do that recently, but I love having dinner parties, cooking for other people, and it's a really important part of my life is, sort of, I mean, obviously sometimes I get too busy or I'm a bit lazy or tired or whatever, and I end up just eating some pasta and cheese. But what I love is taking the time to kind of really get good ingredients and make delicious and nourishing food for myself. And it's a big part of my life still, but in a different way to it was before. I mean, when things are when we're able to again, me and my cousin who I was working with before, and another friend who we did one supper club with before, are thinking about doing a one-off kind of, maybe a charity event where we do another cooking thing, just because we were all talking about it and we miss it and it's so fun and great. So I'd love to kind of do bits and pieces like that in the future, but I don't really see myself going back into a kind of the cooking thing as a business or as a career path.
Maybe there could be something that ties in with pregnancy and food and how you connect those two things, or like maybe like supper clubs for pregnant women, or nice, like
yeah, definitely. And with the postnatal doula thing, part of postnatal recovery is, a big part of it is eating nourishing food, and also not having the time to cook that food for yourself. So as a postnatal doula, that's definitely a part of the job, if that's one of your offerings, is supporting them to make this food for them.
Yeah. So we spoke previously about this idea of taking time away for yourself, to step back from the kind of social engagements, and how important that is. And I think it's quite, interesting that we have been, I guess, into this kind of forced sort of solitude and internal workspace. That what impact has that had on your life, or what impact have you seen it have on other people's lives as well, whether for the better or for the worse?
Well, it's such a mixture, really, isn't it? And I don't want to say that it's all been good, because obviously it hasn't. For some people it's been a really traumatic time and really difficult, and there's been all sorts of things going on for different people. So I certainly can't speak for everybody. But personally, even though there's lots of things that I miss about the world before, having some, being able to go to events, networking, that kind of real sense of companionship when you can go out and meet different people, and collaborations, and sort of being out there in the world, and being sort of aware of other people. There's lots of things about that I miss. But for me, in lots of ways, it's actually been a really great time, because it's really given me that time to kind of go inwards and work out who I am, what I'm about, or kind of return to that, because obviously it's an ongoing journey, but sort of really work it out and solidify my own stuff, really. And I even just with simple things like working on my flat with decorating, and really making it into my own space. I've had much more time to do that. And now my environment is so much more conducive to the kind of life that I want to live. And that's made a big difference for me. And I'm working on my website at the moment. It's almost finished. It should be ready next week and live next week. And, I just did. I mean, obviously I could have made time to do it before and I didn't, but this has given me the opportunity to do it, and to work on actually teaching the online yoga classes has been amazing, really. I know the studio, I miss the studios, and there's lots of great things about teaching in a studio and having that sense of community and seeing people in real life. But I actually love teaching my online classes, and it's allowed people that live on the other side of the country to come to my classes, and obviously they would never come to my classes in real life, if we were in the studios. So I quite enjoy actually teaching the online classes, and also it gives you more freedom, because you can set your own schedule rather than having to follow the schedule of the studios. The classes that they offer you can choose which classes you want to teach and when, and you can choose how you want to market them, the kind of people that you want to attract. Whereas in the studio, it's a different thing, because the studio will already have their own clientele, and then they come to your classes, maybe they like you, maybe they don't. But when you're just teaching your own online classes, you attract the people that are right for you in a much different way. So I've actually really appreciated this time in lots of ways, as well as finding it difficult and feeling, grief for other people that are going through much harder things than me. But overall, it's been pretty good, and I'm excited for, obviously who knows what will happen in the coming year, but for things to start reopening and getting back into seeing people doing things in real life. But I'm also feeling a little bit nervous about that, because I've sort of gotten into my little kind of cocoon of being at home teaching my online classes. It's all very easy and nice, and it feels almost a little bit scary to go back out into the big wide world.
Absolutely. I think there's something to, we enjoy a kind of rhythm, right? And we get used to the new rhythm, and then we don't want that to change in a way. It's like whenever lockdown first happened, everybody was a bit like, oh my God, complete panic, just everyone getting a bit like freaked out about the uncertainty of it all. And then slowly this kind of rhythm kind of comes into play, and we're like, oh, okay. And I think it's the kind of still uncertainty, and the like, oh, maybe you're allowed out a little bit, but then you're not. And then just kind of mixed messages around what is allowed and what isn't allowed, and people experiencing it on so many different levels, and not knowing where everybody is at, and trying to be compassionate and considerate towards everybody's experience of it, because it's so different and really hard for a great many people. So it's very hard to kind of navigate, I suppose. And I think that's what has discombobulated us all in the greatest way. So yeah, I think once we get back to whatever the new norm is, I think there will be a lot of time that will be necessary for healing. But I think we will also, I do have a very sort of optimistic view on it. A lot of people have been talking about, what are we going to, how are we going to do it? And am I going to be able to? And it's going to be so weird. And I'm like, it's just going to be finding that new rhythm. And that's what it comes down to. And it will be jittery at the beginning, but it will be okay as well. We will get back to it. I believe.
Definitely. One of the things that I'm looking forward to is like I was saying, with the kind of with the pregnant women and the women who are postnatal, it's so important to have these communities and support networks. So one of the things that I'm really looking forward to is facilitating that, or being a part of that, or just witnessing that, even for the women that I work with as things start reopening. Even just with the WhatsApp group for the women that come to my classes, sometimes they might meet up for a walk or whatever, but it'd be so great if you could just be like, oh, let's go to a cafe and catch up about your new babies, or how you're feeling with your pregnancy, and things like that. So I'm really looking forward to being a part of that, and seeing these women have that support network again.
Yeah, absolutely, especially for new mums, right? I think it can be a really hard time. I remember I used to work in this little vegan cafe, and down in East Dulwich, and you'd always get the women coming in like around 11 o'clock, and they just to get out of the house, and just to even like have a little chat with me, who was making them a coffee, just to have some form of being an outlet, right, rather than just at home with this obviously beautiful experience that you're having. But we can't be engulfed by that sort of wonderful experience all the time. We need like a little bit of a respite from it in order to appreciate it once again. So yeah, that would be really good. I was wondering what kind of practices you've been doing for yourself at the moment. What has been your kind of go-to daily or weekly, or whatever it might be, just to keep yourself sort of in balance? And what are you doing for yourself?
Well, one of my favorite things to do really is just, it's such a cliche, but to have like drink lemon water and do journaling in the morning. Every morning, or pretty much every morning when I wake up, I just make myself a cup of lemon water and just sit by my French windows in my living room and do 3 more or less pages of journaling. And it just makes such a difference having that little routine every morning, but also the sort of cathartic exercise of just writing down whatever it is that you've been thinking about a lot. And I really enjoy that, my journaling in the morning. I also just go for a walk every day and do my own yoga practices. I love having baths. So I often have a bath in the evening, and that's the main thing, really. I think what I and also attending kind of workshops with other yoga teachers. I love doing that because it sort of helps to have some of that, bring back some of that sense of community and meeting other people, and sort of feeling that you're a part of something. Because one of the things about this past year and a bit is that sometimes when you're at home teaching, doing the working in this field, it can feel sometimes like you're, for me at least, that you're pouring from an empty cup and you're not really getting enough back, because I'm just here on my own. I live on my own, so I'm on my own all day, and then I'm, just go on Zoom and then try to give something to other people, but I don't necessarily always feel like I'm getting that kind of care or support back. And obviously that's just because you need to actively make sure you do it and go to other people's classes, but it's sort of harder in this environment to, in a way, to really maintain that feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's so true. It's you need to be connected to people and share these experiences. Like even this conversation that we're having now, it's like, okay, we're all going through it in some different way, and having that, like, touch base with other people, so you don't feel like you're kind of spinning around in your own sort of thought stream. I've started doing a 3-page journaling exercise as well for the past kind of 2 weeks. I've kind of dipped in and out of journaling, and journals are something I've kept since I was a teenager. Probably it's a way to just kind of get that emotion out. and I found it so wonderful. It's felt like sort of self-therapy in a way, I suppose, just to. And I guess the practice I'm doing is to write the 3 pages and then to review what you've written, and to find in it what the language that you're repeating back to yourself time and time again, and is it positive, is it negative, and how can you resolve that in a way, to kind of go deeper again, right? So it's not just, because I often I will notice that it is surface level stuff that is always with me all the time, and even if I like brush it away, it'll still sort of be there, sort of in the back of my mind, even though I'm like, I'm not thinking about it, but it's there, and it's like nattering away, and unless you really address it, it just kind of persists, I suppose. So yeah, I found the journey really, really good. It's tough to knock out 3 pages, I find, because you have to really sit there and be with yourself, and I find myself getting distracted quite a lot, like, oh, I'll just make myself a cup of tea in between the page and a half, and I'm like, no, stay with it, come back. And it's almost like my new meditation in a way, because you train yourself in that meditative state just to be like, okay, just notice the breath, and same with the journaling. It's like, just stay here, stay with this thought, stay with whatever's going on here, because we're about to uncover something a little bit deeper, and you don't want to go there. That's what the problem is. So
definitely. Most of the time I like to just kind of do free writing, because you can really, like what you're saying, you find yourself diving into different spaces, or it sort of pulls you along by itself, and I think it can uncover different things. But sometimes I like to just use kind of techniques for my journaling, if I'm feeling really stuck, or I don't know what to write, or resistant to it. One thing that I really like using, it's so simple, is just that you write what's good, what's tough, what's next, and then I journal on those different points, and it can really help, especially if I'm feeling a bit like anxious, or really worried about something, and have something really going on in my mind again and again, like, oh, whatever it is about my car, or my flat, or my money, or whatever. And it can be a really great way just to kind of consolidate those, or explore the different thoughts that you're having around it, and get it down. And then also with the what's next thing, sometimes it can help you find some useful next steps to make your way out of it.
Yeah. What are those 3 questions again? Because I feel like those are valuable.
What's good, what's tough, what's next.
What's good, what's tough, what's next. That's really good. Yeah, I think that's important, to the questions that we ask ourselves, like, and how we can ask new questions, because we tend to be asking just the same ones, and then to sort of dig into what is behind the question, or what is behind the thought stream, rather than just letting it kind of pervade your daily experience and never get resolved. So yeah.
Another one that I've worked with a little bit recently as well is control, influence, and accept. So you kind of write a table, especially if you have a particular problem that's going on, or something that you're really obsessing about and worrying about and thinking about, is to write. Well, it could be done in all sorts of different ways. It could just be like a spider diagram, or just however you want to do it. But the idea is that you think about, what can I control in this situation? And generally speaking, there's very little that you can truly control. What can I influence? And that should be that actually there's a lot. You should find that there's a lot that you can influence. And then what do I or what might I have to accept? I don't have control over it, and I can't really influence it, so I have to just accept it. And sometimes they kind of cross over, and you think, oh, maybe that could be control or influence or accept. But it can be quite a good way, I find, to work through all of the different things that are going on in my mind, and let some of it go.
Yeah, it's a really great. That sounds like a really great exercise to just to kind of organize your thoughts in a way, and to gain clarity. Because I will often find that, like, things will be sort of spinning around, and there'll be no real focus to it. And how do you pull something useful out of that? And that's a really great way to just organize that. And I think that's really beautiful. I always admire people who seem to have this very kind of linear sort of way of thinking, very just like, or it seems like they have organized sort of brains, and maybe they don't, but that's the way it seems to me. And I'm always like, wow, that's just really clear sort of train of thought. I love that. My thoughts are like, oh, here's something interesting. Oh, here's another thing that's interesting. And it'll all kind of form this kind of weird abstract sort of pattern in my mind. And I'm like, interesting. And that's about all I can do with it sometimes, until like I really sit with it and try to uncover some kind of pattern from the abstract.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, journaling, it's really brilliant. So what is your plan going forward, assuming we get to go back into some form of, maybe, I think April 12th, April 5th, we'll get to know what's going on, and if massage is allowed to go back. I don't know if that'll be the same for doulas, perhaps, or
well, for doulas, it's a bit, because you're actually allowed to do, with the postnatal doula work, you're allowed to do it already.
Oh, brilliant.
And with the doula work, it's sort of blurred lines, really, because some hospitals say you're allowed to have 2 partners with you, some don't. If you're having a home birth, there will be different rules. The main thing really is how the people feel, if they're comfortable having somebody else there. I think that's the sort of the defining point of it, when it can go back. But
that's really great. So you're already doing that, presumably.
Well, I'm doing quite a lot of online support so for example, with the women that come to my pregnancy yoga classes, sometimes I run kind of group workshops, or sometimes I'll do one-to-one sessions with them, where if they have a particular thing that they want to talk about, or a particular thing they want to do, like if their baby's in a breech position, or whatever it is, then we might do a one-to-one session, or even birth planning, just talking through kind of hopes and fears around giving birth, all kinds of things like that. I've been doing virtual support, which is actually works really well and is really great. So I'd like to carry that on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then possibly start doing. I've done a little bit of in-person postnatal support as well. So just sort of building it up as things, just seeing what happens, really. I think with the doula thing, personally, I'm trying not to make too clear plans, and I just need to let it evolve naturally. See what happens with that.
Yeah.
So that's my plan with the doula work. With the yoga, it's actually really the same, because I have no idea how it's going to go down. I asked the people who come to my Saturday morning classes. Do you want to carry on the online classes even after the studio is open? And they all said yes, but obviously we have to see if they still come and how everything happens. So I'm sort of trying not to sort of obsess or think about my those kinds of steps in terms of my planning, because it's so out of my control what happens. And I just really need to see what works in this new world that we're moving into. And I would love it if they, you know, hopefully the studios are doing well afterwards, and you know, I'd love to run in-person workshops or whatever it is, but I think it's going to be a slow re-emerging, I think, into that world. And yeah, and everything's like we were talking about earlier, how with you evolve your practice and your teaching so much, and I feel like I'm in a real pivotal place when my teaching is changing and finding a new direction as well. So I need to see how that works with it all, and with the pregnancy teaching, and even with my general classes. Not that I would ever want to say these, you know, I wouldn't want to have classes which were just for certain people, but also, you know, I wouldn't want to exclude other people from the classes, but I'm definitely moving into a kind of more the sort of womb yoga or period yoga movement that's happening, that you sort of touched on earlier when you were talking about your pregnancy yoga teacher training, where there's this whole group of people that are realizing actually some of the yoga, the traditional yoga practices are not really suitable necessarily for women or people with female pelvises and with menstrual cycles. And there's sort of a lot of things going on at the moment, and I'm finding that really interesting, learning about all of these things, and I'm definitely becoming more and more influenced by that, and bringing that into my own teaching. So I feel like everything's going to changing, and it's all going to find its own path, and if you try to plan it too much, then you can just sort of trip up over yourself, and you sort of have to let it emerge.
Absolutely. It's like, it's sort of just listening to what it is that's really calling you, and then kind of moving from that place, right? I think that's the most important thing we can do as people who work in these kind of fields. So yeah, really beautiful. It sounds really amazing. If people would like to connect with you, attend your classes, where could they find you?
Well, I'm making my website, should be live on Monday the 29th, I think it is, of what month are we in? Gosh,
March, yeah.
2021. So that is www.Tanya, Tanya dash Fairtlough, it's my surname, but which you'll be able to see, because if you're looking at this, it will be written down, but FAIRTLOUGH.com. So that will be my website, be live very soon. Also my Instagram, Tanya _ gosh, sorry, don't remember what it is. Tanya _Fairtlough _yoga.
Brilliant. I will tag that all in the show links as well anyway. And then
Facebook page, which is the same, Tanya Fairtlough Yoga.
Brilliant. And just curiously, I mean, it'd be interesting to see how this question has evolved, the answer to this question has evolved. Just the same question I ask at the end of every show is, what does it mean to you to live well?
I think kind of acceptance and also self-compassion for me at the moment. That's one of the main things that I'm working on, you know, is doing all of the things that I know are good for me and will help me to live my best life, but also accepting that I'm not always going to do that, and that sometimes things are going to go out of balance, and that's part of the journey, and being compassionate with myself even when I make mistakes or I don't do what I think I should, and just acknowledging that it's all part of it, and you're never going to live your perfect life where you're always doing everything right. So you have to find a way to encompass all of it and still see it as your good life.
Yep, that is really beautiful. Thank you for that.
That's all right. I hope it made sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to say a massive thank you once again for coming on and touching base and sharing with us your beautiful journey, and really excited to see where it all goes. And yeah.
Thank you again so much for having me. It was so lovely to chat to you as always.
Brilliant. Okay, see ya. Thank you guys so much for being here. As always, please head over to Tanya Fairtlough to follow her and find out more about her doula work as well as her classes and workshops. I just want to say a massive thanks for being here and supporting the show. You can really help out by liking, subscribing and sharing it on to whoever you think might find this useful. Thank you so much. Wishing you a beautiful day. Be well.